no good news, David. It's only bad news and irrelevant news.
Every cloud.
Brum brum, cloud wine news, Formula One. And this, originally was going to be a complete review of the Braun. Sorry, let me try that again. Actually, that wasn't good enough. The Braun documentary with me, Keanu Reeves. That wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. Which is like a 4-parter, I think, Disney Plus, and it's about the story of the £1 Formula One team, Braun GP. Is that even what? No, was that what it was called? I don't know. You can tell I wasn't massively into it. Running out of things, running up that hill. I don't know why I said that. And I listened to, so I kind of knew the story before I went into it, like to a very well point, because I listened to the Red Flags podcast and they was reviewing it, and I thought, okay, that's good. I'll probably do that. I'll probably watch the Ferrari movie at some point, do that. But and I like documentaries when I like them, which is like anything. I guess that's a dumb thing to say. But, I don't watch them almost ever. But when there's a good one, you're like, oh, wow, that's really good. Like, the Beckham documentary. Wow, splendid, spectacular. But then, was that documentary amazing, or am I just interested in David Beckham and the contents of it? That's, so much of a documentary. It's like, do you care about the contents? It could be wrapped up nice, but if you're not that interested in the contents of it, then whatever. And this one, I think the contents were mediocre / mid, as I say. Well, they were mid. And I also think it was wrapped up in a mid package. I think both things weren't great. Another documentary, I haven't finished it yet, which is crazy because it's not even that long. I just stopped at that point and I never got back into it. But still, a Michael Jacks podcast today. A Michael Fox story or something. That one was quite good. And that one, it's I think the contents, for me anyway, I was interested in. And then wrapped up in an excellent package. Excellent package, I think, for that one. So this was the third one I was giving a go in across the space of 2 years, probably, because I don't watch them much. And, Drive to Survive doesn't really count as a documentary. And I have to say that I don't know, because I already heard someone else's opinions. It's hard to know if these are my opinions or if I'm just stealing someone else's. But if I think Keanu Reeves was good for it or not, I'm leaning that he was. But I don't know if I immediately think that, or if I'm just saying that because I listened to the Red Flags review this documentary before I watched it, and they were saying he was great for this, and that's why I'm saying it. It was the contrast. It was the yin and yang. He is this American exuberant, is that the right word? And you got a bunch of stuffy kind of English car guys who he's trying to get a story out of, and it really did kind of feel that way. It was it kind of had the vibe of, you have a quiet, maybe introverted child, and you've just got them this amazing Christmas present, and you thought it was perfect, it's exactly what they want, and it costs you a lot of money. And you give it to them and they open it up on Christmas, and you want this big reaction because you're like, I've put so much thought into this, so much money into this, and I know for a fact it's exactly what they want. And they're like, oh my God, thanks, because they're a little introverted kid. And you're trying to get it out of them. You're like, you like it though, right? And they're like, yeah, I do, thanks. And you're like, it's the one you wanted, right? Like you really like it. You like it, don't you? You wanted it, you like it, yeah? And then he's like, yeah. And it's you're trying to squeeze like a rag the emotion and the joy out of them, because they're just not really giving it. That's kind of what Keanu's doing in this. He's so you bought the team for £1? That's crazy. So you bought the team for £1? I can't do it in my voice. That's crazy. And then they're like, yeah, we did. I did. I bought it for £1. Tell me about that. Well, I basically, there had to be something to cover the costs to get it done as an official transaction and buy or whatever. So I remember I gave him £1. I mean, that's crazy though. You spent £1 on a team. Yep, I spent £1. I think he still has it. You can ask him. Okay, do you still have the £1? And he's like, I do. Here it is in my pocket. And it's just it was just this whole. it's like the whole documentary like it kind of felt like it was an admission of guilt having Keanu as the guy doing it. That we have this story and we have these people to interview who aren't that interesting, and we just need this big character because we need someone to try and pull it out of these people. Which is like, I feel like there's other stories where you wouldn't need a voice so loud outside of just the characters in the story or whatever, because the characters in the story are actually interesting. And I think what it was, if I had to rank it, it was wrapped up in a 6 out of 10 bow with like a 7 out of 10 story and 3 out of 10 characters in that story. I say characters are real people, but what I mean is like Braun himself, I don't even know his full name, but like the guy who like is this silent assassin or whatever, like is made to sound so much interesting by everyone around him. And then you hear him and you're like, I guess really silent assassin, because you don't even get a glimpse into that in the documentary really. And you know, it's him, it's Jensen Button, who's like a nice guy, but he's not giving you sound bites. He's not really giving you much. So the most interesting points are really coming from Christian Horner. And it's like, if I need that, I'll just watch Drive to Survive when it comes around. And I don't know, it's like, it's a bunch of people who kind of knew him talking about him like he's interesting and like how this is really interesting. This is really interesting. Like, trust us, this is cool. And then actually watching it play out and being like, it's just not that interesting though. Like, it's an underdog story. It's just like thing that never happened. They bought this team that was going out of business. They built a car. It happened to be the fastest, and they were winning, and it shocked everyone. And like that's rare. And I know if you say anything like that and you reduce anything like that to like those simple words, it sounds shit. Leicester, they were this team who, you know, they were never going to win the league. They were predicted to get relegated by a lot of people, and they went on a winning streak and they won the league. Like, anything can sound boring if you say it like that. But I don't know. I just think like they lacked a lot of like actual old footage, I think, which can be fine. I mean, they had obviously footage of like them racing that was all televised. Obviously, they're not gonna have footage of like all the behind the scenes stuff that went on. Why would that be documented? But like, if you don't have that stuff documented, you need the people telling the story of it to be a little bit more, you know, descriptive of what's happening. And in a filmmaking standpoint, you know, like in still, like the way they act out the scenes and stuff, like in the first shot is like a guy in bed noticing his fingers shaking and stuff while Michael J. Fox is like talking over it, and he's talking about what does Michael J. Fox, I retain information so badly, I'm halfway through a documentary, I can't even remember what he has. Parkinson's, I think, right? And in this, it's like they're trying to like, they're like half going into it, half not going into it, like acting out scenes. Like they have this one, not necessarily acting out, but they have this moment where like in the first episode where they say, and there's this Asian mechanic in the place, and he raises his hand, and then the guy is like sitting there in the interview room, and like he raises his hand up as they say, and it just comes across like so half-hearted, just visually as well. Like where they're interviewing them, everything's being interviewed mainly in like the car factory of the cars in the background and stuff. And it's like the furniture is this IKEA furniture that is way too small for them. Keanu Reeves' chin is resting on his kneecaps half the time. These are like tall guys, it seems like, and they're sitting on like this uncomfortable IKEA looking furniture that you'd see in IKEA and go, that looks weird, and you'd sit in it and you're struggling to even sit upright because you're like sliding off it. They just got like the weirdest looking furniture from like interview to interview. It just lacked a certain, it didn't exude anything. It didn't like ooze class in a sense, or like this business shark like killer vibe to it, this Succession kind of vibe to it. Like it just didn't really have a personality on it. You'd have to just really be interested in the story itself, and that would carry you through, and audience maybe know who these people are and their relations to each other. Because I'm going to be honest, I stopped after episode 1. I didn't get to 2, 3, or 4 because I was just like, I kind of get it at this point. I feel like, how is there 3 more of this? This is the story. They've set it up, and it's just gonna, like, I get it. Jensen Button goes through, and he'll win the thing. Maybe just by the skin of his teeth in the end, but he'll win it. And you know, it's gonna replay these. Like, it's just, there's people who make documentaries on YouTube, and that's like the kind of content they make, and they just take interviews basically. They all start the same way. It'll be like clips from, so let's say this documentary is going to be about Just think of any. It's not a big deal. What's the guy? Chris Rock. So they want to make a documentary on Chris Rock. It'll be like 20 minutes, right? All of these documentaries you see on YouTube, they'll start off in the same way. It'll be clips from interviews of people talking about Chris Rock, and they'll edit the parts like introducing Chris Rock, Chris Rock, Chris Rock, Chris Rock, Chris Rock, and then they'll cut to a clip of Chris Rock saying something like, "Oh my God, I'm Chris," you know. He'll say something as a soundbite, and I'll cut some jazz music will play in the background like and they'll be like Chris Rock was there, and then they'll like go into it'll be like the whole documentary is like different interviews stitched together. Chris Rock, they'll find a speech of Chris Rock talking about his life that'll be narrating over it. They'll have a bunch of stock footage as he's talking, like where he grew up and this and that, and like but yeah, they all play out in the same way, and but it's the best they can do with. They're trying to make a documentary about someone without being able to interview them themselves, without being able to have a real stamp of like creativity on it, other than the interview clips they find on YouTube and like stock footage they can find to match what's being said in those interview clips, right? And that's the best they can do, and even those can make me feel more than like this documentary, which has so much more at its fingertips. Like Dodford is a YouTuber who like makes these kind of documentaries, and even though I do think they all fit into this same kind of format, if I'm going to be critical of them, I think they are edited very well. He's like a good editor, and he has a good team, whoever it is sourcing all the clips from, because I can imagine that is an absolute bore to do that, just like to find all the clips. It's like Google searching. Like Google searching itself seems to be a skill to learn, because like it can be laborious, right? And like they're made well and they're edited very well, and I do think they can be paint by numbers once you've seen one or two of how they all run, and they do all kind of start and play out like that. But like at least like for example, I watched I saw one of his ones the other day, a Jamie Foxx one. It was about like just from using like interview clips you could find on YouTube, and like he doesn't speak in it once. Dodford, who makes it, he just edited this thing together, right? It still made me like feel something and like be a little bit invested, and it's just like a 15-20 minute edited together clip show of Jamie Foxx's life, but it was like done in a way where at least had a bit of some kind of style or personality on it, and this had none of that. It was just so bland and drab, and it's just like you can watch the Beckham documentary or the Michael Fox documentary without being this huge Back to the Future or Michael Fox fan, or like being this huge football fan. I'm sure a lot of people who wasn't football fans watched the David Beckham documentary. It's like you got to already know about the Braun story, really, like at least vaguely, and just be into Formula One a lot. Otherwise, it's just kind of like, because like even the trailer, I wasn't like blown away by, and I like from like big people who are into Formula One who I follow on Twitter, were saying like, whoa, just got chills watching this documentary, and it's like you're getting chills over something because like. Not because the documentary actually looks amazing from like a documentary standpoint, but more just from like a you like this story standpoint, you love Formula One standpoint, which is like an easy get that already going to get some people in the door through that. I just found that the people in it weren't interesting enough. Like the story itself was like I said, it was 7 out of 10 of interest, and then the people in it just weren't even like selling the product that well. Of what the story is, it's like. They weren't great storytellers, basically. I think if the exact same story happened, but the person who was the main character of that story was like Christian Horner or like Guenther Steiner or someone, and not Braun himself, and the driver wasn't Button, but it was like, whoever else, it would be more interesting. But yeah, I couldn't get through 3 more episodes just for the purpose of this. I'm just going to be honest about that right now. I'd probably give it like, it was 5 out of 10. It's just like very meh. But yeah, moving on to more news-related things, though. Speaking of Guenther Steiner, I'm speaking of a man who has fallen and passed. Because out of nowhere, no rumours I saw surrounding this, it's just Guenther Steiner leaving with immediate effect, which immediately made me think, does he got... who found his old account? Has he got tweets up? Has he been problematic? It kind of... The fact that it was just out of nowhere, it was like he got sacked on the day because he just did something inappropriate. That's the vibe I got immediately. I was like, what? Apparently it's because like he has not made good progress with the car or something, and it's not good enough, and he's going, which is like, I'm surprised that's the reason, if that's the case, because I would have thought you'd see rumours on it. so Gene, I guess, made the phone call, and Gunther was like, "Hey, Gene, like, I'm looking at the car right now, and Gene, I think we could really push for like P6 in the constructors, Gene. I think, and Gene was like, no, I'm pulling the plug," and they just kind of said no. And it's like, I just feel like Haas is a team, right? The only thing separating Haas from probably the most boring team out of all of the teams in Formula One, Alfa Romeo, the difference separating a Haas from an Alfa Romeo is Guenther Steiner. Now I'm not saying Guenther Steiner is bigger than the team, but I think commercially, just him being a part of the team. So many people get into the sport through watching Drive to Survive, and Guenther Steiner is such like a big face on the route on the Mount Rushmore of Drive to Survive. They're getting rid of him. Like, you're already kind of losing so many people, but kind of becoming fans of your team and caring at all about your team. Like, I feel like without Guenther Steiner, look, they've still got a decent lineup with Magnussen and Hulkenberg, but let's just be honest, they are kind of boring. And like, they are kind of boring as drivers. I'm looking at last season. It's just like, yep, he'll qualify good, he'll race all right. Mid. And they have made decent progress, I think. I think for a long time it was like they just keep finishing last. They keep finishing last. Why does Guenther get to stay around? And I know he comes across like this whole like caricature. He's like a drawing. I can't remember where I heard this description before. I'm not going to act like this is my own description for a person, but I heard this before somewhere, and it's just very true. Guenther Steiner is like an animator's drawing come to life, leapt off the page and has been running from his animator ever since. And that's the vibe you get from him. And he seems like this whole like, I don't know what's going on half the time. What? The car has to have 4 wheels? I thought it only needed... I'm someone like Total Wolf right now. I thought the car only needed 3 or something. And it's like, he just seems like this idiot. But like, let me look at like... I'm writing... I say this every time, but it takes me forever to type when I'm using one hand. Constructors Championships. I just want to see where they finished over the years. Because like... there has to be a level as well of like, I get there's also got to be a point of we just got to try something new at some point. Regardless if it's really deserved or not. But like, you got to understand how like difficult it is as well to actually climb up the table and break into anything really above a certain level. Looking at it now, they finished 10th, which obviously is lost. So that is not great. And then the year before that, they were 8th. In 2021, they were 10th. In 2020, they were 9th. Equally speaking, if you look at Williams were 10th in 2020. In 2021, Williams were 8th. In 2022, Williams were 10th. It's like basically for the last 2, 3, 4 years, Haas and Williams have just swapped positions, being 10th or 9th or 8th. And it's like there's been good moments, and he has been there a while. You could say his outside is welcome. But like realistically, I just feel like Haas is a car, like it is what it is. And unless there's some real big change in terms of like outside of Guenther himself, a guy, more terms of like a mechanical engineering kind of change, I don't see huge change there in general. And now they've condemned themselves to a lifetime of hatred from me, because I'm now going to go into the new season, which they don't care about. I'm going to go into the new season just rooting for Haas to do badly. You came for the king, and when you come for the king, you best not miss. Okay, and they didn't miss. They shot him dead in the head and he's gone. But what I'm saying is, they killed my boy, and I want revenge. I want blood, and blood's on their hands. That's everything. That's everything in the news. Cloudwine, Formula One, Hards On. We got Hards On. We'll go into the end. I'll see you in the next season. Hopefully, it comes around at some point, end of February, beginning of March, I think it is. We're counting down the days, man. We're counting down the days. I'll see you then. Well, I won't see you then. That's ages from now. I'll see you next week. But you know what I mean. Thank you. And goodbye.